I'm really fortunate to be speaking with some of those who are on the 2021 Diverse Board Ready Directors list. And I just want to ask you, Imche, I'm going to come to you first now that I've mastered your name. Why do diverse directors find it harder to get onto boards?
I think we're all guilty of taking shortcuts in our thinking. It's very easy to default to the idea that board directors should look and sound like most existing directors that you've seen. There's an expectation there that needs to be quite thoughtfully examined, because I think a lot of people who appoint boards don't necessarily examine those implicit biases a lot. And so it also prevents us from necessarily putting ourselves forward, because we don't see people who look like us on boards. So we don't think that we're necessarily qualified or experienced enough.
So tell me, Arti, you sit on a lot of boards where you are the only person that looks like you. Tell me about how hard that is and the impact it has on you when you're trying to get onto other boards.
It is difficult because there's obviously the perception sometimes from the outside that you are on the board because of how I look, as opposed to what I bring to the table. So it is we're all into diversity, and here we go, we've got a person of color sitting on the board. She also happens to be female, and so that's wonderful. So sometimes it's difficult to be taken seriously. The other side of it is, if you come from a different background, and I am an immigrant and came to New Zealand later, sort of as a student, my perception or the lens that I bring to discussions and issues is slightly different to what other people have around the table. And that either I have spent a lot of my life trying to unlearn it so that I fit in and I can have the conversations that everybody else wants to have. But as I'm getting older and maturing more, I'm having the confidence to speak up and talk about the different perspectives that I want to share, which may not necessarily be the ones that people are used to hearing. So it has been a journey.
So tell me, Daniel, there are lots of people who look like us who are standing outside the board room, and they're knocking on the door, and the door is not necessarily opening for them. So they didn't get on the list, even though they applied, and they're finding it hard to get onto a board. What advice would you give them?
My main bit of advice is persistence. I find that a lot of the board opportunities, they're a combination of luck and timing. Often you wouldn't apply for a board unless you felt you met the capabilities. And I find that sometimes it's really more about, are the capabilities you're offering the right fit at that time? Just because you get rejected now, it doesn't mean that you'll always be rejected for that role. The skill set and the requirements will change over time. Keep knocking on the door.
Fantastic. So
I add to that. I agree with Daniel completely. The other bit that I think is really important is to develop networks and connections. Seeking out mentors, connecting. This board list is one of those ways that we can all connect and learn from each other. And for those who haven't made the list, it's a great way to connect with the people who have made it on the list. So you have that sort of mentorship, but also learning about other people's governance journeys and trying to take what might be useful for your own journeys from that.
Great. So Imche, tell me, what are you going to be able to do for others now that you are on the Diverse Board Ready list for 2021 that you weren't going to do before?
I think that one of the best ways to learn is to actually get stuck in and do it. And so I'm hoping that with the board experience that this list will enable me to gain, I can then pass those learnings on to the people who are coming after me and be a representative for people who don't necessarily feel like they fit in, to give them someone to relate to in positions where they would want to be in a few years' time.
Great. So tell me, Daniel, why do you think this initiative matters? Why bother? Why did you put in an application?
I think it's important for visibility. All the people on the call right now and many of the other people on the list, we've been building our board careers for some time, building our capabilities, heading in this direction, and we've got a goal in our mind. But when you're applying for board, it also feels like you're trying to break into an existing governance network. And actually, this provides us some visibility. It's the Super Diversity Institute, Ministry for Ethnic Communities saying, here's a list of people who are ready, we've quality QA'd them, they're ready to go, have a look.
And Arti, finally, I'll give you the final word. Tell me, what are you going to do that would be different from what you would previously do, given that you've been through this experience?
I will sort of be more active in terms of the roles that I'm seeking. I think I have been guilty of not putting myself forward as much as I probably should have. This recognition is, I suppose, the push that I needed really to announce to the world that here I am, and putting myself out there for a lot more of the roles where I know that the boards would benefit, but I would also benefit. So.
Well, the wonderful thing is that hopefully you'll encourage other people to put their names forward as well. A lot of the reasons why I did this initiative was to change the perception of what a board director looks like. I was always arriving at the board table thinking, I don't look like the candidate from Casting Central. How do I mould myself so I look like everybody else? Hopefully this initiative will mean that people realise that board-ready, effective top directors can look like us. And as a consequence of that, we will go out and encourage other people who have great abilities and great contributions to make to boards, but don't, because of characteristics that are totally irrelevant to contribution to the board. Thank you.